4 hours ago, something happened in deep space that should be impossible, not unlikely, not rare, impossible. At exactly 9:14 UTC on February 28, 2026, the James Webb Space Telescope, humanity's most advanced observatory, refused to obey a command from Earth. This was not a malfunction. It was not a minor software glitch or a navigation error. It was a deliberate mechanical standstill. Right now, 1 million miles away at the Lagrange point 2, our most powerful eye on the universe is frozen in place, locked onto a single coordinate, the trajectory of an object known as 3I Atlas. Engineers at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore tried to unlock it. They sent override commands. They initiated safe mode procedures. The telescope acknowledged every instruction. Telemetry confirms the signals were received, but it did not execute them. Instead, it remained fixed, unblinking, centered on that object, with an accuracy of 0.001 arcseconds. Think about what that means. We are talking about a $10 billion machine built with triple redundant fail-safes, designed to prevent exactly this kind of behavior. Yet the data streaming back through NASA's Deep Space Network shows a buffer hold status of 99.9%. The telescope has captured something, but it refuses to transmit the final packet. It refuses to move to the next target. It is staring at 3I Atlas as if looking away is not an option. The onboard reaction wheels, which stabilize the observatory, are spinning at maximum torque to maintain this lock. This is not drift. This is not accidental alignment. The telescope is actively resisting its own programmed sequence. It is holding that object at the center of the near-infrared camera and fighting to keep it there. Machines do not have will. They do not experience curiosity or fear, but right now, the behavior of the James Webb Telescope resembles something unsettlingly organic. It is as if it has seen something it cannot ignore. NASA has labeled this a high-priority anomaly. That is the official phrase, but off the record, astrophysicists are using a different word. They are calling it a handshake. The image trapped in that buffer, the 3I Atlas forced the telescope to take, contains data that violates the standard model of contemporary physics. We have fragments of the spectrum. We have thermal readings, and those readings challenge everything we consider natural behavior in space. Because the object is not just emitting light, it appears to be interacting with the telescope itself. To understand why NASA initiated a Level 1 classification protocol, we need to examine the timeline of the last 4 hours. This was not a sudden blackout. It was a precise sequence of events mathematically aligned, statistically improbable, and too coordinated to dismiss as coincidence. At exactly 9:14 UTC, the James Webb Space Telescope began a standard deep field spectroscopy sequence on 3I Atlas. The mission objective was routine: analyze the chemical composition of the comet's coma. Scientists expected water vapor, carbon monoxide, perhaps organic silicates, nothing extraordinary, nothing controversial. The NIR spec instrument opened its micro shutters. The exposure began. And that is when everything changed. At 9:14 and 32 seconds UTC, just moments after the exposure began, the flight operations team at the Space Telescope Science Institute saw something that should not exist, an error code that does not appear in any public manual. The message read, "Lock persist override. Under normal conditions, once an exposure is complete, the fine guidance sensors release the target. The reaction wheels adjust. The observatory slews smoothly to its next assignment." That sequence has worked flawlessly for years. Today, it did not. The guidance sensors refused to release 3I Atlas. The telescope tightened its lock instead, centering the object with extreme precision. Engineers on the ground responded immediately. They transmitted a manual command to break the lock. They initiated a safe mode request, the digital equivalent of telling the telescope to stand down and reset. The system acknowledged the command. Telemetry confirms receipt, but the telescope did not comply. Pause and consider what that implies. A machine operating 1 million miles away received a direct instruction from Earth and chose not to execute it. It maintained visual contact with the object as if disengaging were not permitted. But the situation escalated beyond a mechanical anomaly within minutes. While NASA engineers struggled to regain control of the guidance system, the European Space Agency's Euclid telescope, currently mapping the structure of the dark universe, detected something unexpected in the exact same sector of the sky, a sudden gravitational irregularity. At nearly the same moment, the Atacama Large Millimeter Array in Chile, the most powerful radio observatory on Earth, recorded a coherent radio burst originating from the coordinates of 3-1 Atlas. The burst lasted precisely 12 milliseconds. 3 independent observatories, 3 different technologies, one in deep space at L2, one mapping cosmic structure, one scanning radio frequencies from the ground, different instruments, different methodologies, identical conclusion, something at those coordinates is active. Numbers do not speculate. A mechanical failure on Webb cannot produce a gravitational spike detected by Euclid. A software glitch in Baltimore does not generate a radio burst in the Atacama Desert. The correlation window was under 60 seconds. The statistical probability of all 3 events occurring randomly within that span is less than 1 in 4 billion. And then the data packet itself raised another impossibility. The file currently frozen in Webb's buffer is enormous. Standard NIRCam images are large, but manageable. This one exceeds the solid-state recorder's expected storage parameters. The buffer reports a file size beyond what the instrument should physically be able to generate. An optical image of a comet cannot create more data than the system can hold unless it is not merely an image. Engineers now believe the telescope is not malfunctioning, it is downloading. It is receiving something so information-dense that transmission systems are temporarily saturated. Webb is not broken, it is busy. We are not looking at a frozen picture of a distant rock. We may be witnessing an incoming transmission stream. And right now, the James Webb Space Telescope is the only device positioned to receive it. Then, at 12:45 UTC, the situation evolved again. Engineers managed to decrypt a tiny fraction of the trapped data, the header file. What they found explains why the telescope remains locked. Webb detects infrared light. It sees heat signatures, but the signal from 3I Atlas is not behaving like ordinary light. It is behaving like a modulated, high-frequency pulse. A telescope is designed to collect photons, random particles of light scattered across space. Stars flicker, comets glow, galaxies shimmer in chaotic patterns. That is how nature behaves. But what Webb's instruments began registering from 3I Atlas does not fit that pattern. Imagine pointing a camera at a candle. The sensor captures light waves, nothing more. Now imagine that candle suddenly transmitting structured binary code directly into the camera sensor, bypassing the lens entirely. That is what the diagnostics suggest is happening. The signal from 3I Atlas is not random infrared radiation. It is coherent, perfectly synchronized, arriving in organized bursts down to the nanosecond. In physics, coherent light requires a mechanism. You need a laser. You need engineered amplification. Natural celestial objects do not emit tightly synchronized photon streams aimed at a precise coordinate in space. A comet is a mixture of ice, dust, and rock. As it approaches a star, it releases gas and debris. It does not produce structured electromagnetic pulses with nanosecond precision. Yet the data indicates exactly that. The energy density of the signal is so concentrated that it is physically affecting the telescope itself. The primary mirror of the James Webb Space Telescope is made of gold-coated beryllium and operates at roughly 40 Kelvin. It is engineered to remain extremely cold in the vacuum of space, but sensors are now showing a localized temperature increase of 0.8 degrees. On Earth, that would seem insignificant. In deep space, for a cryogenic observatory, it is critical. A spike of that magnitude means energy is being delivered faster than the cooling systems can compensate. It implies directionality. It implies focus. 3I Atlas is not radiating energy uniformly like a star. It appears to be directing energy toward Lagrange point 2, toward Webb itself. The conventional explanations were considered immediately. Perhaps a thermal sensor malfunctioned, perhaps a cosmic ray interfered with the detector, but the triple validation remains. The gravitational anomaly detected by Euclid, the radio burst recorded by ALMA. 3 independent confirmations. If the data is accurate, and all indications suggest it is, then 3I Atlas is manipulating the electromagnetic spectrum in a way that interacts directly with our technology. Inside the frozen data packet, engineers discovered something even more unsettling. Embedded within what initially appeared to be noise was a repeating mathematical sequence: 2, 3, 5, 7, 13. Prime numbers. Natural astrophysical processes do not generate prime sequences. Pulsars emit rhythmic pulses, but they do not count. They do not encode arithmetic progression. The signal from 3I Atlas is structured around prime intervals, and the intervals are accelerating. The pulses are increasing in frequency. The energy output is building, targeting L2 from millions of miles away with a beam narrow enough to heat a telescope mirror requires extraordinary precision. This is not a drifting object randomly passing through the inner solar system. This behaves like a transmitter. And as of 13 UTC, every one of these observations, the impossible lock, the synchronized anomalies, the prime number pattern, the mirror heating had been logged and documented. But the most disturbing revelation was still waiting inside the image buffer. And what engineers saw next transformed this from a scientific anomaly into something far more profound. Just 20 minutes after the prime number sequence was confirmed, a source inside the Space Telescope Science Institute described what had finally rendered from the near-infrared camera. The frozen data was not only spectral information. A partial image frame had emerged on a secure internal server, and it did not show a comet. The coma, the cloud of gas and dust that normally surrounds a comet's nucleus, was gone. It had dissipated completely in the captured frame. In its place, the infrared sensors revealed something structured, not a random cluster of debris, not fractured ice. A geometric formation. Engineers reported reflective surfaces arranged in a precise pattern, sharp right angles, symmetry that does not occur in natural cometary evolution. In nature, we observe spheres shaped by gravity, spirals formed by rotation, irregular fragments shaped by collision. We do not observe equilateral triangles emerging intact from the core of a celestial body. Yet, that is exactly what appeared in the frame. The resolution is clear enough to show shadows cast across the remaining dust cloud. Those shadows are crisp and defined, implying a solid surface with extremely high reflectivity, nearly 99% of incident starlight. That level of albedo suggests material engineered to maximize reflection, not porous ice. But the most troubling detail came from frame comparison. Engineers overlaid the frozen image with a capture taken just 4 milliseconds earlier. The geometric structure had shifted position, it had rotated, and according to redshift measurements, it was rotating in the opposite direction of the comet's nucleus. The comet core spins clockwise. The emerging structure rotates counterclockwise. That violates angular momentum principles for a naturally formed object embedded within the nucleus. A surface feature cannot detach and rotate independently against the host body's spin without an external force. A mountain does not spin separately from its planet. A crater does not reverse direction mid-rotation. The only explanation consistent with classical mechanics is separation. The object is distinct from the comet. It was contained within it. If this is a natural phenomenon, then our understanding of comet formation is fundamentally incomplete. If it is a software artifact, it is the most complex and synchronized error ever recorded, spanning multiple observatories across continents and deep space. What keeps astrophysicists awake tonight is timing. The energy spike recorded by Webb's thermal sensors aligns exactly with the moment the structure began rotating. The radio burst, the gravitational anomaly, the photon coherence, all of it coincides with activation. Within the last hour, NASA redirected the Deep Space Network antennas in Canberra and Madrid exclusively toward this object. Scheduled transmissions from other missions were postponed. That level of prioritization does not happen for a routine comet observation. It happens when something may represent a potential threat or a first contact scenario. We launched Webb to study the early universe, to analyze primordial galaxies and trace cosmic origins. Instead, it appears to have uncovered a mechanism concealed inside a comet one that activated the moment we examined it closely. The guidance system remains locked because the signal from the object continues overriding standard release protocols. Engineers now describe it not as interference, but as interaction, a digital handshake. The object is effectively acknowledging observation, and as more data decrypts from the buffer, one unavoidable question begins to dominate every internal briefing. Why now? Why did it activate at the precise moment the most advanced infrared observatory ever built turned its mirror toward it? Comets travel through the inner solar system constantly. We have cataloged thousands. We have studied their chemical makeup, mapped their trajectories, measured their outgassing rates. None have ever triggered gravitational anomalies, coherent photon bursts, prime number sequences, or thermal spikes on a space telescope mirror. The timing here is exact. 3I Atlas remained inert until Webb initiated a deep spectroscopy scan. Within seconds of that scan beginning, the anomaly cascade started. The lock override, the gravitational disturbance detected by Euclid, the 1-2 millisecond radio burst recorded by ALMA, the photon coherence, the temperature increase, the geometric emergence. The activation aligns with observation. That correlation forces a difficult conclusion. The scan itself may have been the trigger. NASA's official briefing avoids speculation. The language remains measured. Engineers emphasize data validation and ongoing analysis. But internally, three possibilities are being evaluated. First, a natural phenomenon we do not yet understand. If that is the case, physics textbooks will need revision. We would be witnessing a state of matter capable of producing coherent information patterns and independent rotational dynamics inside a cometary nucleus. That would challenge established models, from Newtonian mechanics to quantum field theory. Second, a systemic glitch across independent platforms, but that explanation collapses under probability. A simultaneous software hallucination spanning a deep space telescope, a European gravitational survey mission, and a terrestrial radio array is statistically negligible. Cross-contamination across those systems is virtually impossible. Which leaves the third scenario, an artificial construct embedded within a comet, dormant for an unknown duration, activated by targeted electromagnetic scrutiny. If 3I Atlas contains a probe, an engineered device concealed within a natural shell, then the shell may have served as camouflage. Comets are ancient. Some originate from the distant Oort cloud, preserved remnants of early solar system formation. Embedding technology within such a body would allow it to drift unnoticed for millions of years, until scanned. And that raises the central question: was the activation defensive, reactive, or communicative? The prime number sequence suggests intentional structure. Prime numbers are a universal mathematical constant, recognizable across civilizations, regardless of language. If a signal were designed to announce intelligence without cultural bias, prime intervals would be an efficient choice. The accelerating frequency suggests escalation. The directed energy toward L2 suggests targeting. The coherent photons suggest engineered emission. The counter-rotating geometry suggests mechanical autonomy. There is no comfortable middle ground here. If this is artificial, then it waited. It remained silent through centuries of telescopic observation, through radio astronomy, through planetary flybys. It activated only when confronted by the sensitivity of the James Webb Space Telescope. Right now, as you watch this, Webb remains locked. Engineers are not forcing a reboot. They are allowing the buffer to fill. Every hour generates terabytes of incoming data. They are decrypting fragments carefully, aware that interrupting the stream could terminate whatever exchange is underway. In the next few hours, one of two outcomes will occur. The telescope will overheat and shut down, or the download will complete. And if it completes, we may finally understand what 3I Atlas is actually trying to say. But the final layer of this event is not just about physics or engineering, it is about implication, because what this object represents changes humanity's position in the universe entirely, and that implication is unavoidable. Let's establish what we know with certainty. At 9:14 UTC, the James Webb Space Telescope locked onto 3I Atlas and refused to disengage. Three independent observatories, Webb at L2, Euclid mapping gravitational distortions, and ALMA in Chile, monitoring radio frequencies, detected simultaneous anomalies. The object within the comet is geometric, reflective, and rotating counter to the nucleus that once concealed it. It is emitting a coherent electromagnetic signal structured around prime numbers. That signal is directed with enough precision to heat Webb's mirror in deep space. These are not rumors. They are telemetry logs sitting on secure servers in Baltimore. So we return to the central question NASA has not answered publicly. Why now? If this is natural, then we are observing a phenomenon that overturns fundamental physics. If it is artificial, then we are observing technology that predates our ability to detect. And if it is neither glitch nor coincidence, then it implies intention. Because the probability of a dormant mechanism activating at the exact moment it is scanned by the most sensitive infrared telescope ever built is not random. It suggests a trigger condition. It suggests that observation was the key. That changes the relationship entirely. For decades, humanity has pointed instruments outward, assuming we are passive observers of a silent universe. Webb was launched to study the earliest galaxies, to look backward in time. Instead, it may have initiated contact simply by looking too closely at the wrong object. Right now, the telescope remains locked. The Deep Space Network antennas in Canberra and Madrid are fully dedicated to maintaining the data link. Engineers are monitoring thermal tolerances in real time. No reboot commands are being issued. They are allowing the transmission to continue. The buffer is still filling. Every minute that passes, adds layers to the encrypted packet. If the telescope overheats, the stream ends abruptly. If it survives, the download completes, and whatever is encoded within that signal becomes ours to interpret. We set out to understand where we came from. Instead, we may be discovering that something has been waiting for us to look. The geometry is undeniable. The signal is structured. The interaction is ongoing. And if this is a handshake, then it means one thing. The universe is not just being observed, it is responding. If you want to follow this unfolding event step by step as new data emerges, make sure you subscribe and stay with this channel. Because what happens next may redefine everything we thought we understood about our place in the cosmos. And now we arrive at the final and most unsettling layer of this unfolding event. Up to this point, everything can still be framed as data, extraordinary, unprecedented data, but data nonetheless. A telescope locked in place, a gravitational anomaly confirmed by Euclid, a 1-2 millisecond radio burst captured by Atacama Large Millimeter Array, a structured prime number sequence embedded in coherent infrared emissions, a geometric object rotating independently inside a comet, a measurable thermal spike on the mirror of the James Webb Space Telescope. Individually, each anomaly would dominate scientific headlines for years. Together, occurring within the same 60-second window, they form a pattern that cannot be ignored. The most recent decrypted fragments from the buffer add one more critical detail. The prime sequence is no longer merely accelerating, it is spacing itself in intervals that correspond to harmonic ratios, ratios we use in signal compression and long-distance data encoding. That suggests optimization. It suggests efficiency. It suggests design. This is no longer just counting. Engineers monitoring the Deep Space Network report that the incoming stream is adapting to bandwidth fluctuations. When signal clarity dips, pulse spacing adjusts slightly, preserving coherence. Natural astrophysical phenomena do not compensate for transmission loss. They do not recalibrate mid-emission. If this object is artificial, then it is not simply active, it is responsive. That raises the most profound implication of all. The activation did not occur when 3I Atlas approached the Sunday. It did not occur during prior telescope observations. It activated when subjected to high-resolution infrared spectroscopy at unprecedented sensitivity. In other words, it may have been waiting for a technological threshold. For decades, we have searched for extraterrestrial intelligence by broadcasting radio messages outward, hoping for a reply. But what if the reply was never meant to come to our radios? What if it was designed to activate only when we develop the capability to see it properly? If that is true, then this was not first contact initiated by us. It was first contact triggered by readiness. And that changes everything, because readiness implies evaluation. The counter-rotating structure continues to spin. The directed energy remains stable. Webb's thermal margin is narrowing but holding. The data stream has not ceased. No defensive maneuvers have been detected, no course corrections, no propulsion signatures, only transmission. We may not be witnessing an invasion or a threat. We may be witnessing a probe, one that has drifted through interstellar space for epochs, concealed within a cometary shell, waiting for an intelligent species capable of recognizing structured mathematics in light itself. If so, then this is not the end of uncertainty. It is the beginning of dialogue. Right now, humanity stands at a threshold. The telescope we built to study ancient galaxies may have become the receiver of an ancient message. The universe is no longer a silent backdrop. It is active. It is structured. And it may be aware that we are here. Stay with this story. Subscribe, follow, and remain part of this conversation. Because if the download completes, The next signal we decode could be the most important discovery in human history.